Good morning, everyone. My name is Jody. My husband David John and I have a small farm in the panhandle of North Idaho. These are our stories and adventures. And I thought today, being the end of June, that we can go walk through the garden, see what it's looking like right now. Pardon the wind, but it does make it a little cooler when it's super hot out. So let's go check out the garden. So here's just a little pano of what the 2-year-old garden looks like at the moment. Let's go in the gate and see. Let's start over here with the big squashes, my winter squashes. They're slowly starting to take off. Not as impressed with them, but we'll see. But over here are one of my areas of squashes. And I've got my yellow and turn around. I've got green zucchinis coming on. This bed over here it's got some more squash and bush acorns. And then I go into more winter squash. And then over here in this pot is my vine peach that are really starting to take off. And then I have vine peach over here, and this one's already climbing to the fence. So I'm still having lots of hope for the winter squashes to take off once it cools down a little bit. Because as you see, like this guy, his stem here doesn't look good, but everything down the road looks really good on these guys. And a bunch of these are the seeds I just planted in there that are taking off and actually outpacing the stuff I'd started early. But the couple sunflowers at the ends of the beds are getting nice and tall. And then we come into the sunflower. So my onions are doing good. That lettuce hasn't bolted yet. Squashes. This is cauliflower. And I don't know if it's not forming a head yet. More squash, and I am letting this broccoli go to seed to collect seeds from it, plus also leaving it here we can get pollinators brought in. He keeps running away from me, but got a little bumblebee, American bumblebee. More squash and onions, the brassicas. And then in this pot is my Minnesota midget melons. They're starting to really take off. My peas over here are starting to set fruit. More squashes. And I do have the green beans that I've planted coming in amongst the peas. And then the green beans between these broccolis. And then this is the crazy bed. So all of the cucumbers and squash that I transplanted over here, everything took great. And I also succession sowed some more seeds of the cucumbers, and everything's just taking off in this bed. Show you the one side and then show you the cucumber side. Raspberries and sunflowers there. The summer squashes growing on the front side. And they're starting to set fruit. But on this back side, went through and tied up the cucumbers, and it's like this guy is short and stumpy and just full of baby cucumbers. But like, it's got all these baby cucumbers coming up. These big vining ones are really taken off. But the corn, green bean, and sunflower bed got really tall sunflowers, and my Japonicania corn. Some of it is very variegated, where a lot of it is just staying green. Gonna have to go through and plant some more green beans along the front here. But they say if your corn is knee-high by the 4th of July, you'll have corn. Well, this stuff is almost waist-high, so it's doing good. I'm really impressed with that corn. The herb bed, some of it's doing really good and other of it's still struggling a little bit. It's like the green sweet basil is doing really good. The purple is starting to come out of the shock. The thyme is really doing good, getting established. The Thai basil, it's kind of hit or miss. The rosemary's growing, just not really super fast, and same with the red basil over here. But this one volunteer raspberry is just loaded with fruit. The apple trees covered in apples. Here's the back side of the corn bed with the sunflowers and some raspberry volunteers. So let's go look at the raised bed, see how they're doing, because they're in a state of transition. So my lettuce did bolt, so I've been going through and pulling it out and feeding it to the ducks and chickens and geese. Need to do a little weeding in these beds and get them ready to get my peppers in. But here's the one big bed with that had the lettuce and the onions, and starting to get some big heads on my Walla Wallas. This little pea is starting to go, and the vining beans there. Over on this one, I haven't decided if I'm going to leave the beets to see if they will grow, but the green beans on the back there, got this pea that's starting to produce, and then this one here, get on the other side, this one here gets little purple flowers and then yellow pea pods, and that one out of all of them is doing the best. the other side of this guy. And then I've got the little blue sweet pea right here. Got a couple peas there, beans growing there. This bed is just a little weeding and we'll be ready for the peppers. And those green beans there. My carrots. Oh, on the end here is my Minnesota midgets. Some of them are finally starting to take off, but most of it just died back, so we'll just wait and see. But my carrots are starting to really take off. Got more green beans back there and those peas. And over here, got this flowering pea. More vining green beans. And pulled the spinach because it bolted. Took the Reggae-Jack kale. And I pulled the Reggae-Jack kale out yesterday, or clipped it out and packaged it up to put in the freezer for soups, because I didn't want to just straight lose it, and it can be frozen and be reused, where lettuce you can't really freeze. Not sure what I'm going to do with the Swiss chard. I may do the same thing so I can get this half of this bed planted with peppers. But over here in my strawberry bed, it's just taken off and just loaded with strawberries. The everbearings are a lot smaller than the June bearings, but they're doing good. Green beans. And since only a couple peas had started, I planted more green beans. So in these two planters behind me, David John rehabbed them, fixed them up because the bottoms had fallen out of them. And I planted 4 different types of peppers in there. I have each one labeled. And these are the petunias that we grew this year. Same in this one, peppers and petunias. And the petunias were kind of leggy, but since I've put them in here, all of this growth here has just filled in and taken off. Okay, before we go into the other in-ground garden, let's take a look at the front of the seed shed. So over here I have a hanging basket that's got the crazy cherry tomatoes with marigolds. I've got yellow pear tomato in that basket. And this flower pot, I can't remember what type of tomato I planted, but I'm just tying it up on the bamboo stakes. And it's full of the zinnias and marigolds and the petunias. Just took this little planter box and stuffed it full of peppers. Have another tomato flower pot over here, and it's got crazy cherries in it. Got another tomato basket up there. And then the other day I was at one of the local grocery stores and they had a manager special. They got in a bunch of mini roses that were uber dry and half dead. So for $4, I got 6 of these that I can divide up. And they all have recovered and are looking really good. And then the 4th basket of tomatoes and marigolds. Let's take a look at the original in-ground garden. We'll start over here in my shade bed, and I've got daylilies, getting ready to bloom. The little Johnny jump ups are doing good, and my hostas. They were late coming to the party, but they're all growing and coming in. And even my, where'd it go? My little Japanese painted fern, which I thought I'd lost, is coming back. And then over here, I've got several of these things. And that's a 3-year-old foxglove, and I'm not sure if it's going to bloom because they were saying foxgloves only live 2 years and then they die. So that's, even the quote unquote perennial one only lives for like 2 years. So I've got several of these big guys, just seeing what they're gonna do, and if they don't do anything cool next year or this fall, they'll just get eradicated. But the oregano in there, got like this potato and this potato are actually planted way down there. But I got the 2 Abe Lincolns here tied up, the garlic in the back. I did plant some dill back there. Don't see anything on it yet. But the potatoes in this bed, the one sunflower, the foxgloves and sunflowers, the tomatoes. I went through yesterday and labeled all the tomatoes and tied everybody up so they can really start to take off. Probably was a little extreme when I pruned most of their foliage off, but they seem to be recovering just fine. So tomatoes and the kohlrabi. Kohlrabi over here. And these cabbages here are starting to form little heads. That one not as much, but it's right next to this one that's doing good. Volunteer columbine. Planted green beans in here and only had a couple germinate, so I'm going to have to soak more seeds and get them planted. This is a broccoli that I've got to prune out, but it's got, like this one has got all these little guys that I'm just letting get a little bigger. Tomatoes and cabbage. And over here is cauliflower. Let's see, and you can maybe see, but right down in there, starting to get my cauliflower popping. The big wall of tomatoes. Don't really have anything in this bed other than a couple squash, so probably be going to put peppers or dill and cilantro in there. Same with this end of this bed, because these 2 broccolis are going to get pruned out. Got a couple squash, the tomatoes along there. More cauliflower there. Those green beans look pretty good. I'll probably add a few more in a couple empty spots. But that massive clump of foxgloves. And another 3-year-old foxglove with the mini roses. Another one there that I keep pruning back because it's hiding my roses. But that potato bed's nice and full. I know I have to have fences to keep the birds out, but now my little rose bed right here by the pear tree needs to be weeded, so I have to figure out how to easily get in there and get it weeded. Tangerine mini roses are starting to bloom. Got a couple sunflowers coming up. The little marigolds under there. More of the mini roses there. And this pear tree is just, get you at an angle where you can see it out of the sun. This pear tree is just gone absolutely crazy. And then I've got a petunia basket on each end of the gate. I let my rhubarb go to flower just to help for the American bumblebees that we're having huge success with this year. Must have a colony or two around here. Let them just go to flower for the bees, and went through yesterday and cleaned out the flower pods off that one. Let's go over here to the grapes and asparagus. So on the asparagus, it's kind of pretty much a 50-50 on germination, because I had 5 plants planted in each pot, but the grapes are doing phenomenal. Let's go look at this flower bed. So this flower bed's got regular sunflowers and my 2 perennial sunflowers, and then crazy mess of roses and oregano and bachelor buttons and marigolds. The greenhouse jungle that I still have of tomatoes. Some of them I'm saving for if we are able to get the hoop house done in time to plant in there. The little whiskey barrel here by the greenhouse, it's looking pretty, full of color. And as you see, I haven't gotten to getting the seed heads off those rhubarb, but the fennel jungle is pretty and very prolific. Walk up this way and come back down, so that way we're not facing the sun. Let's go out and look at the grass and clover that I planted, because it's coming up amazingly. Remember that area? It was all brown dirt. Now it's just got a beautiful green hue to it. But that patch, the little leaves are going to be my clover, and then the grass. But it's going to fill in nice for the birds. Let's go look at the raspberries, and Darla's raspberry plant is already giving her ripe raspberries. I'm jealous. But no, I don't want to live in Spokane. This is my thorned raspberry, and as you see, it's just absolutely loaded. Got a lot of growth coming on, and the canes that are old enough to mature are going to give us plenty of raspberries. It's like these ones here, just absolutely loaded. But this grape has gone absolutely crazy. I'm going to have to go through and try to figure out how to train it so it grows along the fence to work as a shade barrier for the chicken run. But it is quite impressive, and it is, where are they at? It does have grapes coming on it. The window boxes, the big double marigold's about to open up. And then down in here, all the flowers. The white petunias are actually the volunteer. And then got that window box. David John got his pretty window boxes. This marigold right here was the one that I accidentally broke when I was planting it. And I'm like, if it lives, it lives. If it dies, it dies. It's been dug up by a chicken that got in there and scratched it up. But it has 3 flower heads on it. It just wanted to grow, and it's looking amazing. It's going to look very cool once it starts blooming. And then got the rest of my flowers in here. The bachelor buttons, the one perennial sunflower, the oregano and marigolds. But down here along the back of the house in the Mother's Day bed, let's go down and take a look at that. That hop vine has gone up and is kind of twirling down. Got my Shasta daisy that's about ready to bloom. This little hop vine just had that one rhizome, but up at the very top it is forking out. The variegated grass, the false spirea is about ready to burst into blossoms, so it will be just this mass of white because it's loaded with flowers this year, and the ducks are over here using it for shade. My mint is doing really good, and that stuff right there is not even in the pot, it's growing in the gravel. But this hop vine all the way up, the little maple tree that I'm trying to turn into a bush, and then my forsythia is doing really good. Ducks. Are you talking to us, John? Mr. Snow? But up here by the pond, the daylilies look really good. Have to get in there and do some weeding. But hopefully they'll get some blossoms coming on them this year. The crazy jungle there at the end. The cattails and knotweed. We didn't really take over the waterfall this year because I broke the big root ball off that was underneath the waterfall. Cattails over there, a couple water lilies. let's go around and look at the stuff down at the house. Another shot of the cattails in the bog. Knotweed. And this kind of little jungle flower bed, half native, half planted. As you see where Buddha got moved up. The contorted flowering cherry that I had there, the spring it was looking really good, covered in growth, and then half of it died. And then a couple weeks later, the other half died. Not sure what happened. So David John cut it out and moved Buddha up. So he's sitting back on the top of the hill, on top of the waterfall. The Japanese maple tree looking fabulous like always. The little Mexican fan palm. My delphinium pot, the pale blue is doing really good. The pinky purple ones, they're really susceptible to powdery mildew no matter what we do. So I'm wondering if the powdery mildew is just in the soil itself. So this fall we'll be digging it up, washing all the roots off, putting new soil in after I've bleached the pot, and refilling it with fresh soil. So hopefully next year they'll look a lot more impressive and not as sickly. Double begonias and violas and pansies. Got this one that's about ready to open. And yeah, the pansies are a little leggy from the heat, but they still are pretty. The hydrangea is just absolutely massive this year. Got my little pansy pot, my bleeding heart. Move the cactuses over here, and the one good ivy. And look at this whiskey barrel. Isn't that cool? We actually have two of them. They're the full whiskey barrels. We picked these up at Walmart for $100 a piece. They were just the raw wood, went through, sanded them, and stained them. And this one right here at the end of the rain gutter, I have a antique, old-looking galvanized bucket that we're going to have to put on here for water collection. But just some fun stuff to have. Over here, got my little pineapple and the geranium that is blooming. More of the double begonias, the astilbe, and it's loaded with flowers. That one's starting to open up. A couple more begonias. My Christmas cactus, and it's loaded with new growth. One of the palms. And then over here behind the couch, you've got the two double begonias on the ends, and then all the fern or palms look really pretty there. Got my big palm right here. Because it didn't seem to matter where I had it, it's just so big that in the sun it was getting burnt. So finally found this spot right here at the edge of the pond where it's kind of going over the table instead of in our hair. But another shot of the daylilies around the pond. And cattails right here. And the Japanese maple. Well, this is where I'm going to end today's video. I hope you enjoyed my little tour of the garden. In another couple weeks we'll do another one and see the transformation. So don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.